It's not there. It's not there. It's not there.
It's not there. We got problems. You can hear us.
Technical malfunction.
Oh no, where's it gone? Let's go on to the wide. Stay on the wide.
Still there.
We're still here.
We're here. Okay then.
Your camera's not here.
My camera's not here.
So I don't know what we're going to do about it.
Right, okay. Shall I just carry on?
Yeah, carry on.
Okay then, ladies and gentlemen.
So professional.
Welcome to the latest instalment of the CarpFix Live. We'll have a little chat about what we've been up to recently, what films you can expect in the coming weeks, before moving on to what the main purpose of the live is, which is an interactive Q&A with yourselves, you the member. We've also got a cheeky little prize tonight, a mini Micron presentation set of 3 alarms and the receiver that we're going to give away to one lucky member. You have to stay watching the entire live because we're not going to do it until the end. You have to ask a question, and when we pick you at the end, you have to reply to us to make sure that we know that you are still watching. And if you don't reply, we're going to move on to the next person. So get your questions in. Anything carp fishing related, anything about the content that we create. But to kick things off, we're going to talk. I'll let you start, Scotty, with your...
I was about to sort out cables.
All right, you
No, you're good, you're good.
Do you want to talk about you and
CarpFix?
Yeah, you...
Yeah, so we went to CarpFix, which is in France, under the Carpson's banner, which is, they've got lakes like Three Hills. We went there, and it was originally going to be the social. So we were going to fish our annual summer social like we did at La Tomarie's previously. We were going to do that with you, myself, and Ash. And then something came up in Belgium, which you'll talk about, I'm sure, in a minute. And then, so... basically, Rob came with us to CarpFix. It turned out to be a really good decision to just not do the social there, because if we did a social there, you wouldn't have been able to socialise. The fishing was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, he ended up fishing one rod to one set of snags in the end, and when you got a take, if you weren't on that rod, it was game over.
Yeah.
So... in that respect, if you were there to socialise, you would have had to reel your rods in.
Yeah, or they could we could all sat around and watch Rob catch him.
Yes, and that's kind of what happened. He found what you would call a nest.
A carp nest.
He basically...
A carp nest is when you find like an area of sort of feature, whether it be snags, reeds, lilies, a weed bed, something that holds a ridiculous amount of carp, a carp nest.
And he was basically fishing at 250 to 300 metres.
Yeah.
A long way, but the reason it was that long is so he could get the angle into this nest, and he was fishing past the other swim that we had booked out.
Right.
So he's fishing directly past that into a little channel in between a spit of the lake and also an island. So it was like a little channel where you could only fish...
funnel, like a funnel.
You could only fish there if you were in this swim.
Yeah.
If you're in the other swim, you wouldn't have had a chance because it would have literally just gone straight into the margin, down the margin.
Yeah.
So anyway, he ended up catching one of the biggest fish in the lake. I think it was a joint lake record. He lost some good fish as well, some obscene snag fishing. Going back, if we were to go back, we would fish it very similar to Rainbow.
Yeah.
Like bottles, like what you did on the lot, which is film coming out soon, where you've got the little elastic band on the top of the branches.
Yeah.
You would do that,
because
otherwise you could take the snags out of there, but there are so many. I'm not even joking. The whole margin of the whole lake has got trees in the margin, or big brambly kind of trees, but they're like full-on trees, the size of a house, into the edge.
Yeah,
it's like
that sounds interesting. Like it's proper under the radar sort of venue.
Yeah.
Obviously, these French-owned commercials, they're not all known by the English yet, and I'm sure after this video comes out, it's a challenging lake. Yeah.
And I think it's not one. There will be times there. I'm sure you could get them going. I caught in open water.
Yeah.
There'll be times there, where I'm sure you can catch them out and get them going in open water.
Yeah.
But because of the snags, they just live in them.
Yeah.
And yeah, if we were to go back, we'd fish it like rainbow. But again, it is underfished. There's some very big fish in there that we saw.
Yeah.
You got a lot of French fishing, the Belgian fish it, but the English
not there
as
yet.
far away. We asked the chap there who looks after the lake, and I said, do English come? And he was like, no. So if you're looking for a challenging lake, have a look at CarpFix. I think it's also pronounced Carp or something.
It's CarpFix, isn't it?
There's Carp and then O and then a big X. But if you go on the Carpson's website, there's a little bit of information. They've got a new website coming out. Or just hit up Rob Burgess or myself for their contact details.
So what did you catch roughly?
I think Rob caught between 15 and 20 carp.
Okay.
That is a really good catch rate for that lake. I think the week before a guy caught 6 out of the swim we were fishing in front of.
Yeah.
And the week before, or a couple of weeks before, a guy and his little lad did catch 12 as well out of the swim we were fishing in front of. But it goes to show, I think, fishing exactly where they were, you could catch even more. He did lose a lot of fish, and we will show that.
Yeah.
Just because of the snags. He even lost them under the rod tip. On
snags you couldn't see.
Yeah, well, you could see them, but until we actually went down and he got snagged on one, there was like this metal structure, because obviously you got gravel pits.
Yeah.
So something was left there, and this fish just you can't control it. Just goes straight in, and yeah. But we've found as well. You'll know more about this, but fishing from a boat, we found had a negative effect when playing a carp, because they would lead you on a wild goose chase.
They'd pull you in there.
They'd pull you in and pull. Yeah, you need to be. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like when you're fishing to snags like that, and you've got snags short, you've got to stay on the bank until you've cleared.
Yes.
Like got a good bit of line on them, and then when you think you're getting too close to what you're pulling them towards, then you go in the boat and you try and meet them in the middle, so that you're sort of playing out over the deep open water.
So, Rob was getting a bite. And at the first, we both do it, immediately jump in the boat, because that's what we think is the best thing to do. Get in the boat and go and get the fish.
And you got towed in.
Completely the wrong thing.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And we should have known that, because we just should have known that. And then we soon cottoned on that
you needed to win the battle. You need to win the opening exchange.
The battle, and that's what he did. We've got shots, of him getting the bites of savage, gets the bite, and then just like walk back as far as he could, which wasn't far, and then just keep the pressure on, and he was getting them out.
Yeah.
He caught multiple 40-pound. The average in there is 37, 38. So they're good. They're good fish. There's a few smaller fish in there, but the average was 38, if not 40.
Yeah. So a few 40s you caught? Any 50s?
No.
40s and a 60s?
Yeah, 48s, 47s, and then...
Well, that sort of time of year they're spawned out as well, aren't they?
Yeah, so 60 would have... is 64 maybe?
Yeah.
It was a 70, we believe.
Yeah.
The guy there said that there'd been a 34 kilo out, but we didn't see a picture.
Which is 76 pounds,
we didn't see a picture. He said, we asked him what's the biggest fish he's seen in the lake, because there's very little on social media.
Yeah, that's good. That's like under the radar.
Yeah,
you can get the good swims at a good time of the year.
But we took the drone up. Obviously, we had book swims. We didn't use the drone to find the fish. We took the drone up to get some shots. But when we saw fish in the trees, they're just massive.
Yeah. Talking of massive carp, the Immaculate Common came out this morning, which for those of you who don't know, it's the biggest carp in Gigantica. I was only talking to Danny about it at a recent charity event where I was over doing the melanoma focus charity thing at Baston Fen last week, and we were just making jokes about if someone finally catches it, will it go into a 42-inch landing net? How big will it be? It's a ridiculous thing, and obviously rumours start circling when it's 2-3 years uncaught. And being a cynical sort of guy that I am, you know, if it wasn't that fish and the fact that it hadn't gone long periods without capture before, you know, I probably would have been thinking, oh, is it dead? Has it died? You know, is it still there? People saying they're seeing it and whatnot. But having fished the lake on and off since 2009, that fish has done it before. You know, when I very first started fishing there was a photo on the wall of it in 2000 in August 2007, and it was 2013 before it appeared again. So it has done it. It has got the tendency to disappear, and for me, that is absolutely phenomenal. You know, a lake like Gigantica, got 10 to a dozen anglers around it every single week, every swim, bait rattling in there 24/7. Pretty much the whole lake getting fished under constant pressure every day of the year, almost pretty much the whole year. And to go 3 years or whatever it was uncaught and come out healthy,
and this time of year as
summer
well.
weight at 98, you know, you can almost guarantee that's going to be 5 or 6 pounds heavier come November, December. I'm not saying it will definitely come out then, but you are talking about £100 common in the lake that anyone can book to go and fish. We've got 2 trips there next year, so that's like
Good timing.
Good, like the fact that it's come out. Our trips are in August. Yeah, August next year. August into September.
And then
so
a late one. Yeah. So this time.
So very sort of
Similar time.
decent time to be there. So you're not saying we're going to catch it. To be honest, when I go to Gigantic, I don't even really think about it. It's you know, it's such a hard fish to catch that. You know, there's so many big ones in there. You just hope to catch something decent. But moving on from that, like I say, I was supposed to be going to CarpFix with Scott, with Ash on that trip, and then fairly last minute, Danny Fairbrass called me, said that they'd just taken over the fishing rights on a lake in Belgium, just over the French border for embryo angling, and there was a gap where there was no bookings. And did I want to go and make a film for CarpFix? And it made sense, you know, for Ash and myself to go to Belgium, Rob and Scott to go to France. Obviously, we were creating 2 films at the same time. Now, we fished on Clover Lake, which is on the new complex, which is called the Carp Arena complex. So it's the biggest lake on the site, the big fish venue of that little complex. You book your swim in advance. You fish from a boat. And the swim we're in, I think it was called the Dead Tree. And because we're in the same swim, it's booked. You can't really move because other people are going to be fishing. And I'd taken Ash off the social. I said to him from the beginning, you can bring your rods, you can fish. And we just spread the rods out along the far bank. Had a really enjoyable session. Caught some really old, gnarly sort of fish that have probably been in there for 30, 40 years. They look like they're ancient old things. Caught some quite young, scaly things, very young and pretty, and caught some sort of what you'd call typical French carp from like that they've also stocked. I think they put them in a lake behind called the Lily Lake, and then when they got to a certain size, move them in. And we managed it. The ideal storyline for a film is that you catch a few and it builds to a climax at the end. And we caught the biggest fish on the final night, 53 pounder, had 340s as well, plenty of nice fish along the way. And I definitely recommend this venue. It's you can book it now for 2024, and I definitely recommend it if you want to go on holiday. Someone that's not far from Calais, it's only an hour's drive from Calais, where you can book your swim in advance. Sit in the shade if you book the Dead Tree swim that I was in, really massive overgrown swim where you can have you're gonna not bake. You know, in the height of summer you can absolutely get nuked in certain swims, but in that one you'd be nice and cool. And to fish with a mate doubled up like that, jumping in a dinghy, placing your rods on the far bank, that's low stress fishing. You know, no spomming in the sun. Yeah, a couple of hams.
That's social fishing. That's where we should have done the social.
You know, like it's. I'm going to go and put my rod out. You just wander over with your rod, get in the boat, drive to the far side, plonk it down, a couple of scoops of bait round it.
Job's a good one.
Drive back to the bank. You know, low stress. You know, you can do that half a dozen beers, and do it well.
Even the Pint Stella ones.
Even the Pint Tin Stella, yeah. So yeah, that'll be a good film. Both of these 2-week sessions will be great films. And one session that we haven't actually touched on that's still in the edit. We went to Swan Valley in Yateley, which is I think you can book it exclusively again. I think it's like for the whole lake. I think it might be £600 for the night, something like that. And you get quite a few people round it. But we had it with a competition winner, didn't we? What did you win the competition for? Was it Just Fish With Me?
I think it was like one of our monthly competitions.
Monthly giveaways.
Yeah, I think so.
So we fished there. 2 of us on the whole lake, which was, like millionaires fishing. We were well far apart, weren't encroaching on each other's angling. I was in the top corner of the furthest corner from the car park. Massive, like load of dead weed in the area, sort of floating and sort of holding the fish in this corner with a big overhanging tree there that you could take the bait boat to and drop underneath. But the rod that, although I did catch some on the bait boat across to this really nice overhanging tree that we could see carp underneath, caught most of them on a spot the bailiff recommended. I think it was only 8 wraps out, so again, really nice sort of easy range, comfortable fishing. Onto a little gravel patch in quite a weedy-ish sort of swim. Again, we're in the shade. Just bombing out boilies because there's quite a few tench in there, and we didn't catch loads. I think probably
nice fish though, aren't they in there?
Yeah,
from what I saw,
we didn't get any big uns. We didn't get any 30. Like there's lots of 30s in there, and there's 40s. I think we had 10 or so fish. Something I can't even remember. 10 or so fish, up to high 20s. A couple of nice linears. So a real old leathery one. Be a good film. And again, a venue that anyone can book. Go there with their friends, and I like to do films on places where anyone can go.
Let's just do a very quick 1 minute interval because I need to move that light and want to try and reconnect this camera. Your job in 2 seconds is to move that light onto you a little bit more, and I'm going to reconnect this camera. Ready?
Right.
3, 2.
2 seconds.
We'll be back in 30 seconds. 3, 2, 1, go. More onto you. You'll be fine there. Bear with. People can probably still hear me. Okay, this camera doesn't want to appear.
We only need one shot.
Yeah, I know. It's just annoying because it's nice for the other shots. All right. Well, you look slightly better.
More lit up.
I don't know why that camera's not working, but we've got one.
Should
we do some questions?
Let's have some questions.
Right,
then.
so for those of you who just joined me, because I put out a push notification and quite a few joined, if you ask a question to Pecky, at the end of the live, we're going to do a draw, just a very simple scroll through the questions and select someone, and then that person will win as long as they confirm they're still watching. So if you don't confirm, because we're doing this literally, there's no delay in the stream. It is pretty instant, like 5 seconds. As long as you reply, and we see it, then we'll give you a couple of minutes, I guess.
Yeah.
And then they're yours. If you don't reply, then we'll move on to the next person.
So just to clarify, you have to ask a question. You have to stay on to the end to see the draw take place. We have to select your question. We have to, once we've selected your question, you have to reply to that. And if you don't reply to that within a couple of minutes, we're going to move on to the next person because we want a live winner.
Yeah, it's like the one. If you watch the radio ones, I don't enter them, but if you know the ones
if
that
you answer the phone and you don't say the right thing,
exactly.
Yeah,
same. So maybe we should make you say Mini Micron X or something like that.
Okay.
I'd say I want them.
Yeah, Mini Micron. Give them to me. Give
Just say something and they're yours.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Anyway.
Let's have a question.
Liam Banks. Evening, lads. Hope you're good. Darrell, when you're fishing in the combi rig on a lead clip, do you ever get paranoid that the gravel spot you've plumbed has got bigger stones or bits of weed on it that will make the boom sit awkwardly?
That's a really good question, That's a really good question. Proves that you're thinking about what's going on out in the lake. Obviously, you've got the swivel from the lead. So the swivel from the lead, that acts as something that allows the lead clip to fall from one side to the other so that the rig can find a home for itself, hopefully not propped up against a rock, etc. So I think there is always the potential for a rig to be sitting bad occasionally, and I generally think when that has happened, when you reel in your rig, it tends to come in with like a funny curve in it, where it's been, obviously if it's pushed out straight, it sits out straight. But if it's sort of hanging over something where the hook and the boil are trying to hang down, it does come in with a bit of curving. Not something that I've had happen very often, but it is something that I think is always possible. You know, you plumb around, you have a rough idea of what's out there, but you never know exactly. And one of the reasons that at Corda, a few of the lads, or quite a few of the lads now, using the heady leads on leg clips, because it offers more instant hooking. Obviously, that's a good thing, but you lose some of the ability for the leg clip to fall over, and that extra sort of movement that could allow your rig to sit down and sort of find a better home for itself on the bottom. And that is also the reason why I don't use an anti-tangle sleeve directly forced onto, say you had a quick change leg clip on with the anti-tangle sleeve jammed on the end. That forces the rig out, has to go away. It can only go forwards. And if it just so happens that there is a stone or who knows, like a beer can on the bottom or whatever, it can only be forced out in that direction. Whereas if you've got a ring swivel, it's sort of going to fall down, and if a fish was to brush it, it can sort of be moved into any position in a 360 around the lead. But the one downside of having it on a ring swivel is that it is possible for fish to move the hook bait until it goes back up the line. So both rigs have definitely got like a single floor. So the floor would be with the anti-tangle sleeve that is forced out in one direction. And if that direction isn't clear or has got an obstacle, then it's not going to be presented right. And on the flip side of that, if you've got it on a ring swivel and the fish are sort of blowing the bait around the spot, there's potential for the bait to come all the way up 180 degrees from sort of the perfect line and be forced back under the tubing, the leader, or anything else like that.
Very good. Good question.
Yeah, good question.
Right, let's have a look. Dave McCreath. Good evening. What breaking strain fluorocarbon do you use, and how do you keep it in good condition, i.e. stretching and cleaning?
Okay, another good question. Like the 12-pound Corda Contour is the one that I've used more than any by a country mile. It's fluorocarbon's greatest asset is that it's heavy, and its greatest negative is that it casts badly. Whenever you change from normal monofilament to fluorocarbon, it's always shocking how much noise it makes when it goes through the rings. And when you change back, it's always amazing how smooth mono casts in comparison. So the biggest thing you'll notice as you try to use 15-pound fluorocarbon, 17-pound fluorocarbon, that sort of thing, it gets thicker. And as it gets thicker, it casts even more terribly. So yeah, I tend to use the 12 because it's the one that casts the best. And I do feel that fluorocarbon, not all fluorocarbon, I do feel that the Corda Contour in 12-pound is particularly hard. When you bite through it, you'll notice it's much. I know most people probably use scissors, but if you try to bite through it, you'll notice it's considerably harder than general monofilament. And because it's only 0.33, it does cast all right. I wouldn't be happy fishing normal 0.33, in sort of most situations. For me, that's too thin. But in that fluorocarbon, it is quite hardy stuff. And if you're fishing short range and you want your line to sink like a brick, and the transmission of the lead hitting the bottom is really the critical factor, then fluorocarbon's the best. But once you start getting to 25 wraps, and probably less for most of you, it will become less user-friendly.
Cool. Rupert Torp has asked about the combi multi-rig again. Are you ever worried that a light hook bait like plastic corn would wrap around the shank on the cast?
Not on the cast, no. It's not something that it can happen. I'm not saying it can't happen, but it doesn't happen often. I was in Corda yesterday doing some VO for thinking
voiceover.
Yeah, voiceover. Putting like some almost narration like over the top of some shots, and I lost a couple of fish at bled, like more than, that combi multi-rig is a very, very good hook to land ratio rig, but lake bled was particularly soft on the bottom, and the fish had particularly soft mouths, and I was using kamakuras, which, like, in hindsight probably shouldn't have been. They sort of probably cut themselves out, but I lost a fish on that shoot from what I call a hair tangle. What he's talking about, do I worry about the boilie swinging around the shank? It is something that can happen, but I think if you hit the clip well, and you're not like got a really erratic casting style, I think that it's very, very unlikely. But it is something that you want to consider, and where you have how far the D comes down the hook, and how far the swivel on the little hook bait swivel, how far that's pushed into the bait. Those two things can really have an influence on how likely that hair tangle is. So I would make sure you pull that micro ring swivel 90% of the way in, so just the last eye of it is just showing, so that it's got the movement to the ring, and that your D is opposite where the barb would be.
Cool. Dean Driscoll, evening guys. Darrell, if you were fishing a weedy water with different kinds of weed, what would be your go-to rig and bait approach?
Yeah, again, it's a very different types of weed, but what different types of weed is the question. We've had this one quite commonly on these live feeds, and most of the time I still look for clear spots near it, not on the weed, but around the weed. You're looking for areas of heavy weed where you can fish on clean bottom, a presented spot, hopefully something that the fish have fed on, something that feels like it's been cleaned off by them. That's the ideal scenario. But to fish on top of weed, going back to the clear spot, if you're fishing on the clear spot near the weed, you're just going to use a standard rig because you're fishing on clean bottom. So that's whatever rig you want, whether it be a Ronnie rig, a combi multi-rig, a braided rig in a solid bag, doesn't matter because you're fishing on a clear spot. But if you want to fish on weed, you have to know what sort of weed that is. So the blanket that eel, not eelgrass, it looks like a green duvet that you get very low lying on the bottom. Now that is the perfect weed to fish a chod rig on, or to fish a stiff hinge rig with the bead pushed up the thing. So it just comes to rest on top of the weed, and the fish will feel very confident feeding in that weed, because it's clear spots get overfished. So being able to present baits in weed like that can be edgy, and I feel the best way to fish on weed like that is with boilies. I think they sort of fall down at different levels in the weed. Some are on show, some are out of show, but you still get the attraction come up through the water. So yeah, that sort of weed you can fish on top of. If you get sort of like grassy weed, you can sometimes crash a solid bag through that down to the bottom and catch fish in like that. Canadian pondweed, you can sometimes fish on top of that when it's particularly dense. But yeah, to be honest, for the most part, I'm looking to fish on the clear spots with standard presentations. And when you've got that low-lying, like duvet type weed, then I will fish on top of it with a chod or a stiff hinge. And if it's quite strandy, I sometimes put a solid bag in it, but not always.
Cool. Chris Noble is going to Sandhurst Lake at the end of the month for a week, and nice. He has asked, have you got any advice on hook patterns to use for spinner rigs, as the rules don't allow curved shank hooks?
Well, if you watch the stuff that we do, I've used quarter wide gapes in various guises, whether it's the standard ones, the X's, the barbless, the wide gape double X. I've used all of them almost entirely with the exception of nothing else for 20 years. I had a little phase using choddy hooks for a little rig that I used to use with a small pop-up, but I could hand on heart say that I want to be using them at all times. I think that they're the best hook for hook to land ratio, and they don't tend to do any damage in the mouth either. So yeah, really good pattern. If you're going to use them on a Ronnie rig, a 4 or 6, I wouldn't use an 8, but yeah, a 4 and a 6 should be good.
There was a video I did when I was at Corder with Dovey, on a masterclass, might be like volume 5 potentially, on spinner rigs.
Yeah.
And he goes into detail about using different patterns of hooks. So
Yeah, he uses the what are they called? The cranks. Yeah, and so does Spooner, and they both really rate them, and like they say, they hardly lose any fish on them. So yeah, I'd happily use them. Both of them catch loads of carp, and they're obviously good. So yeah, cranks or wide gapes.
Yeah. Okay, Gavin, he's off to Gigantica in June. Early June.
Yeah.
As it,
you can give us some tips before we get there next year.
He hasn't actually. Oh yeah, so he's asked for some tips for early June. Have you been in early June?
Well, I've been there in May, a couple of times, a few times.
How would you approach it? Say it's still post spawning. What like?
Well, it's very. You're going to be very close to spawning. Then
yeah.
you're going to be very
What
very
would you
close.
Do?
A lot of the time, the swims that fish to margins are the best ones at that time. Not always, but a lot of the time at that time of year, swims like Big Girls, swims like the Stock Pond, swims like Scotty's Corner, can be really good at that time of year.
Is that like before spawning and after spawning? Or?
Yeah, I think it's until the water is absolutely baked through.
Right.
I think you got to think it's a deep lake coming out of winter. Even it takes a while to really get properly like heated through, and I do think the fish when it first warms up, even into June, still. I caught some in deep water when I was there, didn't I? So I was there in May, and I caught some out in open water, and so did some other people. But the guys that really done well were the guys fishing around the edges. But that said, I only caught 2, and they were both bigger than the guy next to me that caught about 15. So yeah, the bigger fish will get caught in the deeper water. There'll be a lot of males even after spawning, loitering around the shallow ground. So it depends whether you just want to catch or you want to wait it out for a big one. But not mental on the bait as well. Then I wouldn't go mental on the bait at all. I'd keep it sort of minimal, fish for a bite at a time, topping it up. And again, zigs will still be. You'd still be able to use a zig and think you can catch.
Cool. Yeah. Good luck. Joey Thomas, how do you work out the swing back of the lead when spotting over what depths? Obviously, again, we touched about it, so just do it briefly. Yeah,
it's such a common question that, and although there are formulas, the single best way to do it is find your spot with your leading rod. Once you're happy that the lead, every time you cast it out on your leading rod, is hitting the clip, going down to the spot, make sure that you're consistently holding the rod on it in exactly the same position. So I don't mean 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, like just constantly in one position, whether it be 12 or 3 o'clock. Once you're happy with that clip, put a marker float on, cast out onto that clip, hold the rod in the same position, take it out of the clip, pop it to the surface. When you see that on the surface, that's how far your lead has swung back. You would then cast your spom to the float, adjusting the clip until you get it exactly right. And then you work out what the difference is. So, when I'm fishing at Gigantica in 20, 22 foot of water, a lot of the time the spod rod is clipped half a wrap shorter than the fishing rods. But it does depend on the range, it does depend on the wind, it does depend how you hold the rod. But the best way is to find your spot, consistently hold the rod in the same place. When you're feeling it down, attach a marker float, cast a spom to it, and work out the difference.
Cool. Wayne Vidler is currently on Berners Hall.
Okay.
What is it? September.
Good time.
Getting towards the middle of September. How would you fish it in this heat?
Well, I think the fish in the daytime could be off the bottom, sunbathing, hanging out in the open water, as they often do on these sort of busy commercial venues. I'll be setting my stall out for the night and the early morning, putting my spoms out in the evening, afternoon, getting my bait out, making my disturbance, getting it done, putting enough out to think that when it gets cool in the middle of the night and early hours of the morning, that I've got enough bait to catch a few fish without having to rebait. You want enough bait out there to get 2 or 3 bites and then top up. You'll be fishing. Bernard's got a lot of carp in it. You're going to be fishing for a hit really. You're sort of fishing for 2 or 3 bites at a time as they come on the spot, unless you're using a bait boat, and then you can do it ultra stealthy, a handful of bait each time to keep building it up. But if you're spomming, get it's that many fish in there. I'll be talking probably going for 40 spoms if you're on the fish. If you're out of the way and you're fishing for stragglers, less bait. But if you're in one of the main bowl parts, the fish are on you. I'd be very happy with 40 spoms of gear out there and waiting for the early hours of the morning.
Cool. Dean Driscoll has said, Scotty, when will your vlog be coming back?
He needs to go fishing again.
It was all right, wasn't it?
Yeah.
People enjoyed it, which is good to see. But I'm going. I was going to go around now, to be honest, but obviously the weather's way too hot, so I'm just going to wait for it. I don't want to fish in this heat; it's just horrendous. So I'll wait for it to cool down, and then with regards to your question about the underwater stuff, I really want to do some, but it's the time, because
winter.
We've got the gear now. It's just
We'll do it in the winter.
Yeah, we'll find some clear lakes. We've got a few in mind. Jacob's also really keen to do one on somewhere that he suggested. He did suggest doing it this month, but again, with everything going on for me and you, it's September and October are always a busy time. But we will do it at some point.
Yeah, it's coming.
Ed Curlew, good to meet. So he said, "Hi Darrell, good to meet you briefly as I came off Swan and you came on. What is your biggest?"
Swan?
Yes, I guess Swan
Swan
Lake.
Valley.
Yeah, Swan Valley. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He briefly met you. What is your biggest tips for autumn and winter fishing?
Autumn. I'd be definitely like October, looking to not the deepest areas of the lake, but the deeper areas. And quite often it can be alternative baits depending on the nuisance fish sort of situation. A lot of the time they've been hammered by the autumn on whatever it is they've been hammered on, and they can change on to be very sort of cagey around sort of whatever. Say your lake gets hammered on spod mixes, they can get real cagey to that. If it's a boilie and pellet only venue, they can get really sort of cagey to that. At Gigantica, I know that around October time they start to catch a lot of fish on maize. They've been fishing boilies and pellets all summer, and as it starts to cool off, the maize really comes into its own. I've done particularly well using straight sweet corn, so like just neat sweet corn, nothing else, fishing yellow pop-ups or plastic corn over the top. Boilie crumb, maggot and hemp is another combo that I really like to use. Straight maggot, straight caster, all of that is brilliant, but it's expensive, like maggot and caster, and sometimes bulking it out with a little bit of hemp, and that is a good idea. Even some ground bait. But yeah, don't look for alternative baits. Look to locate fish showing in the evening as opposed to the morning and into the night, and the hours of darkness will often be the most prolific, especially October, November time. The bites, a lot of the time you're sitting there all day just waiting for it to get dark, and as soon as it does, the fish come to life. So yeah, that's what I'd say.
Cool. Carlos has asked, what's your opinion about Steve Neville alarms? Love how it looks, but I don't know if it's a very good...
I've got a good opinion.
Hold on. Not. I mean, he's just scrolling. But I don't know know if it's a very good alarm. Still suffer with crack-offs on the base. Thanks.
They're a very carpy, very trendy alarm. And if style is more important than substance, then you will use a Steve Neville, because if you want to look like Terrier, and if that and you like it and you like the look of them, then that's cool. But realistically, there's much better alarms. Having the ability to adjust the sensitivity, having a sounder box, all of that sort of stuff is just like, come on, man. Use something that's functional rather than trendy. That's what I'd say.
Okay, Darren Williamson. Who is the best angler you've ever fished with or you have been up against when targeting a certain lake?
I've fished with loads of really, really good ones, obviously. Not like to great extent. I've seen Terry Hearn, not up close, but like fished on the same lake as him for short periods of time. Seen more of Dave Lane and Jim Shelley, again, both like absolutely mustard, like the real deal. yeah, Tom Stokes, another one, really, really good. You know, you get a vibe from the ones that are the real best of the best. They don't need to tell you they're good. You know, they're not. It just emits from them. You know, they're always thinking about the right things. You know, asking the right questions, noticing the right things, rather than getting their head caught up whether they've got a yellow pop up on or a pink one. You know, or if they're using a curve shank or a wide gape. You know, the real best ones are thinking about the movements of the fish around the lake and the spots that are going to do the bites. Yeah.
Cool. We've got a new viewer this evening, Ben Williams, new to this channel. Great films and techers, loving the varied content, all the different styles of carp fishing, top quality films and techers. How much planning and prep goes into a shoot? A lot.
Oh, mate. The thing I hate most about my job is the changing from one venue to the next. What I ideally would love is just to go to the same one over and over again, because then your tackle gets super fine tuned. So you've got exactly what you need in your bag. And when you get home from the session, you don't need to think. You just take your barrow out of the car. And then when you need to go again, you put the barrow back in, put some more bait and water in and food, and you go. Whereas I come back from a shoot and it's like, oh, am I going to need these bank sticks? Or do I need a pod? Or do I need long bank sticks? Or do I need a boat or an engine? Do I need to be fishing braided mainline? Do I need short rods? Do I need long rods? Do I need fluorocarbon? Do I need... Like, that's the most annoying thing. It's like having to constantly be anxious about having the right kit.
But from a filming point of view, obviously some of the trips, like we said earlier, some of the trips that we plan, say Gigantica, we book that over a year in advance. A lot of the lakes we do, like the lot film, that was booked way in advance when we were over at Oriana.
But you're not prepping for it for a year, are you? Prepping a week in advance.
Yeah, you're prepping a week in advance, but the time-consuming bit for us is the editing. Like I normally say now, for the editing, it takes us 3 weeks to edit 1 week of film, so it takes 3 times as long to edit it.
Yeah.
Normally, like it depends how many cameras you've got, how long you've been going out, how many you caught, how many people you're filming, fishing.
Yeah.
There's loads of variables, but generally it takes 3 times as long. So if you watch a week session film, it'll usually take us 3 weeks to edit it.
Yeah. That's why we break them into 2.
And that's why we break them into 2 to spread the load a little bit. And also it's why, we kind of go on, I don't know, the shorter sessions we do because we can turn them around quicker. So the ones we do with Rob, we can turn them around so much quicker. And when we're trying to put out a video every Friday, it's tricky.
Yeah.
When we're going out filming for a week, but So on both parts, really, it takes an awfully long time to edit them and an awfully long time for Pecky to plan if you're going out to different lakes all the time.
I'm always scared of not having, especially when you go away for a week.
Yeah.
You've got to have all bases covered in your car. Like you've got to have all of the different types of stuff because you can't drive home and get it. You know, so that's the problem.
Yeah. Okay. George Cook. Oh, someone's just asked about the alarms. So these alarms, Nathan, Rostron. To win these alarms that we have on display, you need to ask a question on the live, which you have. So we might...
what are the alarms? Is that his question?
Yeah, which is... He probably knows how to win these. He's just putting a question in. But how to win these alarms, ask a question, and then we will pick a winner at the end. But you have to confirm that you would like the prize at the end. So you need to be watching, basically.
You have to be watching.
Yeah. Right. George Cook, question about self-takes. Doing self-takes with a Canon and a 50mm lens, but struggling with the shutter speed. Only thing that seems to work is cranking the ISO up to 1000, but still only get 160. The 60th.
It's night shots, is it?
It doesn't say. 50, I don't know. I'm not too sure why that is. Why you're only getting that lower. Your aperture must be set too high, or are you using an ND that's like a ND 32 or a 16 that's really high rather than a polarized filter, maybe? Or if it's night shots, then you need a flash.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure. Email us info@carpfix.tv, and I'll maybe be able to help a little.
Sometimes you can have like there might be a setting on the camera where it's like can only go down to a certain shutter speed or only go up to like if that's been accidentally set.
Yeah, so it's like limited.
Limited, like it can only go to that.
Yeah. Email us, George, and we'll have a look. I'm not too sure on whilst we're here. Stephen Scott. Afternoon, lads. Darrell, who got you into carp fishing inspirations? What keeps you motivated? Also, do you ever enjoy fishing for other species? Granted, this is CarpFix.
I just started carp fishing when I was about 11 years old. Float fished on the rivers before that. And just, worked in a tackle shop when I was 15. And it's just always been like my biggest sort of passion. I've not really got many other hobbies. Fishing's really the one for me. The other bit was who got me into it. No one really got me into it as such. It's just a transition from float fishing and whatnot. And what was the last bit of the question?
How do you like catching other species?
I haven't got time for it. Years ago, I used to do a bit of chub fishing on the river. And when I say a bit of chub fishing, walking down the side of the River Chelmer with a bum bag and a split pack of split shot and some hooks and a landing net and a lump of cheese. Catching a few small chub, so it was just more of a case of whiling away a summer evening, whereas now I go home to their wife and 3 children. So I don't tend to do much coarse fishing.
Ben has been a member since the start of CarpFix, and this is his first time on a live. He's just here for the alarms, aren't you?
Are you just here for the alarms? But it's good to see that you stayed on that long.
Yes.
Hopefully enjoying the content.
Yeah. Right, Adrian. Hi, Darrell and Scott. Darrell, I'm fishing Devon RD on DDAPS ticket. I don't know how you pronounce that club.
DDAPS.
DDAPS.
Is that what it says?
Yeah.
Is
that how you say it?
There is a club in Kent. There's a club called DDAPS, I believe.
Yeah, that's what it is.
It's Sutton at Home Lake 2, is it?
He hasn't said, but potentially. Days only. Now shame as when you fished it. Oh, so when
Okay, so I fished there. What's the mission?
What's the biggest tip being days only takeout location?
Right, so the biggest thing to understand about Sutton is that it's absolutely riddled with rudd or roach and bream. So it's like the biomass of that lake means that all of the micro invertebrates, all the little worms in the mud, everything like that, are getting destroyed by the coarse fish. So what that means is the carp are sort of super tuned to bigger food items. And when I was there, pre-baiting was like, if you watch the videos, you know that I don't do a lot of pre-baiting, but one of the best things that I started doing on there was putting sort of 3 kilos of boilies out around 48 hours before I was going to fish. So I'd come down for a session, put 3 kilos in, and then come back and fish on top of that bait, especially in the edges. I would strongly recommend that you focused all of your fishing on that lake most of the year round in the edges, close to the lilies, close to the overhanging trees, close to the snags, rather than fishing in the open water where all the bream live. Pre-bait, like pick 3 swims and fish them based on the conditions and bait them based on the conditions. That pea pipe corner was always held fish. The pads always held fish. And I believe sort of around the point and the dugout, that area sort of always held fish. I would pick 3 areas that the fish are visiting regularly, pre-bait before your session, sort of 48 hours in advance with 3 kilos of boilies, bigger ones like 18s or 15s, not small ones. No particles like that because they're nuisance fish. And those big carp know what those balls are, and that will get the better of them.
Cool. Joey Thomas tried to upload a video to our community page. Try doing it via the web browser, so on your laptop or computer. If it doesn't do it, try a different browser, so like Google Chrome. There's 3, I think: Safari, Google Chrome, and potentially Firefox that work really well with our platform. So try and do it via the web browser. If you do it via the app, I think it's until I get the app updated, it's only pictures on the app. So try it.
Okay.
On the laptop, and it should work. It works for me. I don't upload on there, but I can see that the option's there. So it should work for you because that doesn't need updating. Right, questions. We'll do another 10-15 minutes and then we'll do the old prize, shall we? Let me just go back to where we were. Someone I just saw asked about, would you do a big public lake video? What do you reckon? Yeah.
Have we not done one?
Well, Spain. France. What did we do in France? Not really. We didn't do any big public lakes, have we, in France?
We haven't done any. Like, there's a lake near.
Obviously, you've got the Seine, which is a public river.
Yeah, but
it's not.
I keep wanting to do one on. What's the lake next to Orient? Amance. Like, yeah, I quite like the idea of getting our petrol engines on there.
Oh, nice.
So we could like zip around. We wouldn't have the worry of running out of juice all the time.
Just stay there.
And there's some big ones in there. So yeah, I'm quite interested in Amance. But I don't. It's thing is, we want to make content like Scotty was saying. But if we go there for a week and don't catch anything, which is realistic, somewhere like that, could blank, and then we'll be scrabbling for content, scrabbling around. So yeah, I think at some point we will end up doing a big public lake. I really want to do. I don't know. I don't want to say it because I don't want someone to beat us to it. Actually, so.
Right, okay. Yeah, I was going to say before. Be careful what you say.
Yeah.
Because you know what'll happen.
Yeah.
Anyway, best lake in the Cotswolds. Louise asked.
Don't really know many lakes in the Cotswolds. I fish farriers, but that croc is a nice fish down there. Everyone says if you're going to drive to the Cotswold, it's the croc that you want to be fishing for. But I imagine that there's a lot of. There's so many lakes there, isn't there? It's a lifetime of fishing around there. So I don't really know it, obviously being from Essex.
Yeah. Mark Rose, on a gravel hard spot, would you fish with bottom bait, wafter or a pop-up?
I've hardly ever fished with straight bottom baits anymore. And the main reason for that is I want the hook to sit under the boilie. And I do feel that quite often with just a standard bottom bait, the hook sort of can be propped up off the lake bed, doesn't sort of come down to rest neatly. But I'm starting to fish with my wafters, not sort of right up anymore. I'm starting to I like them sort of touching the bottom now. So obviously the hook pulls them down, but like not rocking around all over the show. And I quite happily fish with pop-ups on gravel as well and do so regularly, but I don't really fish bottom baits anymore.
Cool. Adrian's clearly trying to win the alarms. He said, do we have to keep asking the question or write it once? If we land on that kind of question, we're just going to skip. We're not going to play that game.
Yeah, but they can ask multiple questions.
Yeah, they can ask multiple questions, but that's a void, that is.
Yeah, it's not a real question.
No. Who is the best fisherman you have fished with and why?
Dave Lane, probably.
Yeah.
Probably. Stokesy's right up there. Yeah, the thing is everyone's good now. That's the problem. It's like everyone's pretty good. Like years ago it wasn't like that. But I'd say Laney, Stokesy, Danny, Dovey, they're they're all gangsters, man. They're all gangsters.
Lee Honeyset, would you prefer to use a leader or not?
In a night, like one of my favourite setups to fish with would be like a fluorocarbon leader to a braided mainline. I think you really got the best of both worlds there. I think when you cast into spots with braid, the accuracy is just so unrivaled. It really, really enables you to be so precise. Also with braid, you can literally just rip them out of weed. It just seems so much easier to clear fish of weed in that situation. Sinking braid, like sub braid, sinks really, really well and gets out of the way. And the fluorocarbon leader is sort of there mostly to protect the fish's flanks. But for the most part, most of the UK fisheries that we go to tend to be no leaders and no braided mainline. So the two things that I really like to use the most, I don't tend to use that often. And I tend to use fluorocarbon for short range and mono for normal.
Cool. Charlie, sorry I missed your question. We've got a lot of questions, as you imagine. So I have missed a few because when I get a new comment come in, it skips on the app, which is a little bit annoying.
Doesn't matter though. There's still questions. If it doesn't matter if we've answered them or not, does it?
It's true. Yeah. So Grant Harvey has asked. I'm disabled, I have an MS, I currently cast to 20 wraps. How can I greater this as I currently use 3.5 ounce leads? You don't see or hear of disabled anglers.
That's difficult for me to say. The only way that you would improve your casting is to practice, and not necessarily practice in a fishing situation. Practicing in the winter when no one's around, just walking down a few pegs from where you're fishing, whacking your rod out repeatedly is a good way to do it. Because if you do it in a field, you'd be pulling it out of the mud every time and having to walk up and down. But if you watch the Core, the long distance masterclass, there's loads of brilliant tips in there from Terry Edmonds and myself. Obviously, Terry's a world record holder, so you're probably best listening to him as opposed to me. But one of the real key things for long distance fishing is one of the things that tackle wise that will make the difference. The rod makes a much bigger difference than the reel. And the line is probably the single cheapest thing that you can change to add range. The thinner the line you've got, the smoother it casts. So like changing to a tapered line with a thin diameter main line, that will easily add 15-20% to everyone, from say using £20 line. And the other thing is weight transfer, taking a step into your cast and hit it like you mean it, as in don't like just be sort of jalopy with it, hoping that it's going to go. Really be aggressive with it, and you'll be surprised how far it goes.
Cool. Josh Garrity. Darrell, with this weather we've been having recently, where do you think the fish will be on an 18-acre lake, 7 to 9 foot deep and very weedy?
I think in the daytime they'll be swimming high in the water, sunbathing still, taking advantage of the last of the what do they call it, an Indian summer, when you get a late summer. So they'll be taking advantage of that. But I think the light levels have a huge sort of impact on what the fish want to do. Though it's hot, they will be feeding in the early hours of the morning, in the night. I'd be looking. These conditions wouldn't really change much for me. I'd literally be looking for them the same. Be looking for jumpers in the morning. Be looking for bubblers in the morning. They're the real. I really want to know where they are at bite time. Like where they're cruising is great, but they might transition from one area or in a weed bed out a bit, like to a different area to feed and stuff. So really, it's like looking to see where the carp are at the times that you're most likely to catch them, and setting out your stall there where the fish are most likely to encounter it.
Cool. Right. Last question, and we'll do this, and then we'll wait to hear if we see while we do another question.
Yeah.
Tom Mould, would you like to have fished the combi multi-rig on some of your old hunting grounds like Yateley back in the day?
Yeah, I think so. I do think it's a better rig than the standard knotless knot braid. And the standard knotless knot braid works as a confidence rig. Fish picks it up, doesn't realise it's got anything in its mouth, gets hooked, But I do think there's a lot of time involved with a slack braided rig, and I do think that obviously something that reacts faster is more efficient. And I like the way that you're not wasting components. That's, on a normal session back in the day, I tied a new rig for every single time I cast out. Whereas now I just change the hook every single time I cast out, which, I get spools of hook link from Corda, and they just last me forever, because the rigs go on and on and on unless you cast them up a tree, which I try not to. So I do think the rigs I use now are better than what I did before. Would I have caught more fish? I don't know how much difference. I think you catch them in the end. If you're on the right spot with the right presentation, where the fish are, it might take a couple more pickups to hook them, but you hook them in the end anyway.
Right, someone's going to win these.
Someone's going to win.
Make it very quick. See if... Yeah, you can see that, can't you? If we do this. Right. So, let me just get to the top. And then I'm just going to go like this. So, right. I'm not going to look what I'm doing. Is it still moving? Can you see it's moving?
Hang on a minute.
It's moving, yeah?
Yeah.
Right, you just tell me.
I'll just come in and just give it one of them.
You can do it if you want.
Right, really?
Yeah.
So,
right, who's it on?
Liam Banks.
Right, Liam Banks. He was right near the top as well.
Was he?
Yeah, he was that first really good question.
Right.
Right, Liam, are you watching?
Liam, are you there?
Liam. Come on, Liam. Don't let us down. So next week's video, whilst we're waiting for Liam, hopefully Liam, you've got until 1 minute past 9, okay? And then we're doing your one. It's
2 minutes.
2 minutes, yeah.
What's he got to write? I want the alarms.
Yeah, just
Liam.
tell us he's here.
Liam, I want the alarms.
Please, Liam.
Or we're going to give them to someone else.
Come on, Liam. There might be a mate of Liam on. It's like,
Ringing
get
him.
back on the live. Oh, he's here. He's
here.
watching. Well done.
Well done. Well done.
Liam, I'll get in touch. I'm just going to make a quick note. Everyone was hoping that you were not watching. You were watching something else. Right, Liam Fox alarms. I've got your details, obviously, so we will send you. I'm watching, lads. I'm here.
I'm here. It's probably because we've got a little bit of a delay, isn't it?
Yeah, it is like a 10-second delay.
10 second delay.
Yeah. Right, well done, Liam. Next week we've got. I think it's the first part of your lot film.
Next Friday.
If it's not, it's a Jacob vlog. It's either the lot film or Jacob's film, and then it will be definitely the lot 2 of the lot films. Yeah, and then we've got loads of other stuff.
We've got loads in the can.
Yes, loads,
and loads coming up as well.
Yeah, We've got.
Don't say it.
What? Okay.
Don't say what I'm going to be doing.
No, not you. Not
right.
Not you.
What are you going to say?
Rob's going to what's the lake called? Bernier.
Oh yeah.
So Rob's going over to France for us again to cover you.
Cover me, yeah.
So lots going on. We'll see you in October.
Yeah. It's scheduling the live for the beginning of October. The first week.
We'll sort that out, yeah. All right.
Right, thank you very much, ladies and gents, for joining us, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.